Hey guys, this is your Cloud Strategist channel. I'm Sridhar. In the last video, we looked at the basics on artificial intelligence and how a neural network forms the core of the AI model. In this video, we're going to look at how Custom Vision AI from Microsoft can be used to build a model and export it to use it in your application. So let's get straight into this. So last week we looked at how this neural network can be trained to identify or classify an image and predict the output based on the categorization of the image that was done during the training. Now, neural networks gives output in the form of a probability, in the form of best fit in terms of the identification of the output, and that's based on the way it's been trained during the training process. So now in this case, the image of an animal is given a higher probability in the output, and that's how we are going to look at what's the identified image or the classified image. And as you can see, these are the other tags probably the model was trained on, and it rates the image against the other trained information and puts them on a lower probability, as you can see here. So let's look at how Custom Vision AI from Microsoft can help in creating a model. So I've logged into my Azure subscription. So I have an Azure environment. I've created a resource group, which is something similar to a folder. And what you need to do is to get to Custom Vision AI web page, and you sign in into the Custom Vision AI portal. It's going to use the same credential as your Azure sign-in that you have used. Because I'm signed in here, it did not prompt me for a login again. Now we're going to come up to this page where you are allowed to create a project. So I'm going to give a project name. Let's say identify as the name. I'm going to give a description, identify or human or an animal. And then I need to choose a particular plan. In this case, it's a Custom Vision AI cognitive service from Microsoft. So I'm just going to go ahead and create one in my subscription. All it does is automatically creates a custom vision service in I'm going to choose Australia on a particular pricing tier. Okay, and meanwhile I'm going to come back and start creating the project itself. So I'm going to leave that name as it is. So it has picked up the Custom Vision plan that I've chosen. I'm choosing the classification project type. So there are two types. One is the classification and the object detection. Classification works based on the primary subject in the image that you're supplying and in identifying or classifying that particular image in a particular category. Object detection works by identifying number of objects within the image supplied, and it could be trained for identifying specific objects. Now in this case, we are going to do classification. Let's use a single tag option. You could do multiple tags, but I'm going to leave it as single tag. And in this case, I'm going to choose a compact model. The difference between a non-compact and a compact model is compact models are small, but they are not high precision, but they could be used in smaller footprint devices like IoT device, a Raspberry Pi, or a mobile device application. But whereas if you're looking for a very high precision classification and identification requirements, you can't use the compact model. You would go ahead and use the general domains that you see here. So let's leave the export capabilities under the basic platform. That's going to allow us to export in a TensorFlow model for us. So let's go ahead and create the project. And once the project is created, it's going to bring you to this page where you can start adding images. Now there are going to be three different steps that we are going to follow. One is add the images, train the model, and then export the model and use in the code. So let's go ahead and add images. So I've got some sample images that I've downloaded from Google Images. So I'm going to choose a few image of houses here. A minimum of 5 image is required to train the model, and you should have at least two tags, because the model has to understand what is the difference between something that we have uploaded versus another category of image that we have uploaded. So if it's all one single tag, there's no way to differentiate between one and the other, because the other has to be present. So we're going to add another image of let's say cats, and again I'm going to add 5 or 6 images and call them cats or cat, and then upload those images. Let's do one more and call it maybe an animal. 3, 5, again a few images, and I'm going to call them as animal. So we want to see if the model can identify the difference between cat and an animal, because that's how we have tagged them. So as you can see, I've got 5 images in house, and animals and cats are having 6 images each. So I think we are good to start our training. So let's go ahead and train this. I'm going to choose quick training up there. So it's going to take a while, and because the number of images are very small, so it's going to be quick and faster for us. So when it trains the model, it's going to come back with the precision information on how well the model was able to identify the images based on the tags that we have. So let's wait for this training to finish. You can always come back and add more images and add more categories into the model and retrain the model. So you would use the latest trained model for your application, so you could choose to export them and use the latest model. There are 3 different options when you have to export a model. One could be a frozen model, which is which in the case of TensorFlow, it's a model which can't be trained offline when you have already exported them. But whereas when you choose a saved model category, I'll show that, and you will be able to export that model and train that offline from this web page or website, and then using your code you will be able to train them. So as you can see, it has come back with a precision and a recall. So these are important parameters, and this refers to how well the particular category has been learned and identified, and it's capable of identifying, and this one measures it against the other category of images that have been uploaded, and how well you can identify a particular classification. So let's quickly go ahead and test this. So what I'm going to do is to browse an image. So we didn't use this animal in our training, and you can see the probability, like I mentioned, it comes out in terms of probability. The animal is identified in this image. So let's go ahead and do one more and see if it can identify maybe a cat. Let's use an image of a cat which we have not used in the training and see. So that shows as a cat, and as you can see, there is some level of recognition that it does. It identifies it as an animal, because there are some parameters as it has learned also shows that it matches that of characteristics of an animal. So that's how it's going to look like. So how do we export this? So that looks like it's working. So all I need to do is do an export. There are different options depending on which scenario where you want to use it, use the model. So in this case, I'm going to use it on a TensorFlow code. So I'm going to export. Like I mentioned, there are a number of options. The TensorFlow option gives you a frozen model, which you can't train offline. You have to come back here and retrain the model and export them again. Whereas a saved model, as you can see here, is something that's open, which means you could train them using your code, not necessarily coming back to the website. So I'm going to use the TensorFlow code and do an export, and that should give you the option to download, and that zip file has got 3 important files. The model.pb is the model file, and the labels.txt or the txt file has got the actual labels that we have. So all we need to do is to export this to the code that we used last week. So let me go ahead and export that. Let me go ahead and export that. So I'm going to put this under C drive, wherever I've got my application code running. And let's go ahead and run the application to see if the code works for us. So I'm going to again use my mobile phone to show some pictures. Because it's not been trained for person, it's identifying me as an animal. So in this case, as you can see, it can recognize this as a cat as against an animal. So I've downloaded the images, so that's identified as an animal and that's identified as an house. So that's how you would use Custom Vision AI to train a model, export it and use it in your application. Feel free to try this. There is a sample code available in Microsoft website. I'll put the link of the code in the video down below. Feel free to try it and train your own model. If you like it, subscribe to the channel. I'll talk to you in the next video. Thank you.